Hello, hello. Here we'll give an introduction to a project I've been working on, Lost Vikings level builder. So instead of being locked out to only the levels made back in the days by Blizzards, you can now make your own levels and hopefully have some fun with that. If you only have interest in playing the levels I made, then you can jump on to the link to GitHub here and go into the releases, where you can find the latest release of the exported game. So you can just play that. In case you have interest in actually making levels, you will need a couple of things. First of all, you will need the game engine, being Godot. You can just download the release from the site. Right now, this is built in 4.5.1, which is a fairly recent release. I imagine that it would just transfer without an issue over to a new release if that had happened in between. You will need the source code. It's here on GitHub, so you can just fork it or download it and open it directly from Godot, the project. I will try and give an introduction to the project itself. So here in the root, we have one file that you might want to care about, the scene control. I'm going to get more into that later. For most cases, you only need to care about the levels folder. In here are all the assets, so that is the different players, the assets connected to that to actually draw the stuff, the different interactable items. However, you can just do it directly from the level editor, as I will show later. The first thing you want to do when you want to make a new level is just to take the template and imagine that you maybe made your own folder with your own set of levels. I'm just going to paste it in here into my level folder. And from here, we can then open that new scene. And there we go. You can see it a bit blank now, but that makes sense. We're just building levels. One thing that you will actually need the code. Most of the time you don't need that. However, there's one exception, and that is the scene control. You need to tell the game where the level actually is located. So for example here, we have a definition where we have a level. You can give it a name. That will help when you do level selection. You don't need a text and an end text, and you have the level of where it's located. Except for that, you don't really need the code at all. You can use the code to make more complicated stuff, but all of the levels I made doesn't do that, with one single exception. All right, so what does happen in this level here? So let me first walk through what is going on in the scene. We have the parent node, don't need to care about that. We have this texture rect, that is depending if you want a background or not. If you are making space levels, you typically just add a background. If you use other kind of levels, you might want to use this texture. Then we have the background. So that is, let's say you want to maybe do something like this. So you have a nice background. That is what that is for. Objects is where you put in your, where you add in your objects. Let's say you, for example, wanted a button. So you can say here, instantiate scene, and we want a button. There you go. Now we have a button to play around with. If you want to make more groups like this, you can just do that. It might be very convenient when you make bigger levels to not have everything joined up in the same place. When we have the camera control, for most part, you don't need to care about that except when you're done with the level. So right now, the bounce of the camera is put out very far. So once you're done with the level, let's say that you want the button down here. So you can then begin limiting where the bounce of your scene goes. Fade scene, you don't need to care about that. That one handles when you all go to the exit to fade in and fade out. The HUD, again, you don't need to care about that. That is just already made for you. Text boxes, again, you don't need to care about that. That is just the system to actually make the text boxes appear. Then we have the 3 players. These you can also leave be. Then we have some interactable tiles. So for example here, if you want to add spikes into levels, this is the element you use to do that. Then you have the tile map layer. You can see they are from different worlds. So you could, for example, add some more ground here if you wanted to. Then you also have the tile map layer with no collision. That is if you want to have something where you can still walk through it, for example. As you can see here. So that is the objects we have on the scene. When you have these kind of stuff, you can just operate with the objects and move them around. So let's, for example, actually use this button for something. Let's remove this again. So a good example of what you might want to use a button for would be to use a door. So let's start up a door. The door has some properties. These are the general property system used in Godot. And if you're just building levels, you might not need to interact with this. So first of all, for a door, you can select is it open or closed. You can select which operation mode it should be in. For most times you might want to use signals, as is the default here. But for example, if you just want the door to open and close by itself, you can use it for auto. This is what you might see in level 2 of the original Lost Vikings. The time one is it opens for a while until the timer runs out. The most common one is being the signals. So we take our button. Then you need to go over into node. The button has in the code built a signal called activated, aka you clicked on the button. And we want that to connect to the door to open. So now, when we go into the game, you can see the door is closed, but if I press the button, it will open. So that is a very common way to set it up in Godot, that you just connect things with signals. This works generally for all the different stuff. So for example, let's show the same idea with maybe an item. Again, here you have your item. It has a property where you can select what it should be. In this case, I'm going to put it to the blue key to have the key to interact something with. We might want a keyhole. And we want that one to match the key. So let's make it blue. And same idea as before with the button. Once it triggered to being opened, we can connect that to the door to open the door. So if I now pick up the key and use it, the door will open. Same idea. Now it's made so I can both open the door with one or the other. Let's show another example of a property. So for example, if I take a ladder, you might want different height for different kind of ladders. So this one says height 4. Height 4 is referring to the tiles. So let's put it to be 8 tiles high. And grab some of this ground here. We can just put it up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe that should do. This is sometimes slightly annoying, but you actually have to position the ladder correctly, or it's not going to work out for you. Okay, never seen that bug before. I probably put it in relation to the door. Yeah, you don't want to put it in relation to other objects. That is my bad here. I imagine that is what went wrong. There we go. Now we have a functioning ladder. However, you can see that it doesn't fit the height correctly. While you have this here, you can actually change it in here in the meantime. If you have two screens, this is convenient enough. And get it up into position so it actually aligns. You want the ladders to align correctly. So you can both walk on and off as you want to. So here you can see an aligned ladder. So yeah, that is one of the traps. You do not want to put the other objects as children of the other objects in the scene. That will make them not behave as you might want to do. Again, same idea with the door. You might want to put it in, depending on what kind of level, you might want to put it in a different style. So you could, for example, put this one in Candyland theme. And then you get a Candyland ladder, so you can just mix and match as you like. Then we also have some more special objects that are not equally visible on the scene, but can be very useful. For example, the spawner. So this one right now is configured to start immediately, take 7 seconds between doing something, and the thing it wants to do is spawn a bubble, and right now it's enabled. So for example, if we now start here, you can see that it spawns bubbles, and it's going to spawn one every 7 seconds. Another very convenient spawner you might want to use is the wall spawner. So instead of putting in individual blocks to make a wall, we can use this one instead. And in there, you want to then say how many tiles do you want and how do you want them located. So let's do, for example, this here. And now it will make a wall block that can be broken by Eric. You could also make some blocks that you could walk on and break, etc. So instead of having to put in each individual block there, you can just make this spawner here and make it spawn with different blocks. So I'm gonna stop here with that introduction to the level builder. It is, you probably need some experience in order to actually get good at it, but hopefully this small introduction should break the immediate barrier so you can actually get starting and do something nice with this engine. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will have fun making levels and learning how to build some levels for the community so people can have fun with the Lost Vikings.